Hi Stub Clubbers, and welcome back to day 19 of our 25 Days of Disney. I'm Jennifer.
I'm Amanda.
And today we're going to talk about some information on Mary Poppins because today is the day that Mary Poppins Returns comes out in theaters.
Everything is possible.
Even the impossible. Off we go.
I'm so excited.
And I can't wait to see it. Many of us have seen Mary Poppins before, so we're not going to talk too much about what the movie's about, and more talk about the information that a lot of you might not know.
Right, this movie is a classic, so I really hope you have seen it, especially before seeing the new one. If you haven't, take the time. You can find it at your local library, I'm sure.
The person who wrote Mary Poppins is P.L. Travers, and she is a very, very interesting woman. They gave the Disney company a very, very hard time, and almost didn't let Walt Disney do this.
There's actually a movie, about that, Saving Mr. Banks.
I love that movie.
I actually have not watched it yet.
It's so good. We need to watch it one night.
We do.
It's really good.
That might be an upcoming, video after 25 Days of Disney.
Mary Poppins actually started off as a short book series, and then from there it carried off into doing a regular book series with a novel. That there were several Mary Poppins novels that came out. It just wasn't one that the movie was based off of.
Right.
And originally she wasn't really writing these to be children's books, and then it kind of went into that. So that's a little bit of an interesting thought, that it was created about children with a nanny and it wasn't going to be a children's book.
Yeah, it's
that's
kind
not
of
what she wanted.
Odd synopsis for a book if you're to write about kids and not make it a kids book, but we got a great film out of it still.
When it came to Mary Poppins, Walt Disney wanted to make this because one of his daughters asked him to make a movie out of the Mary Poppins novel because she loved it so much, and he promised her that he would be making it for her.
Aww.
But it just took a very, very long time.
20 years ago, I made a promise to my daughters that I would make your Mary Poppins fly off the pages of your books. I promised them, man.
I know what he's going to do to her. She'll be cavorting and twinkling.
You can't make the film unless you grant the rights.
Damn.
He approached P.L. Travers, and she was just very, very difficult about it. It almost didn't get made into a movie. It was a very bumpy road to even get there, and it was a lot of, I guess you would say, bribery with pay at first.
Yeah, and for some people, their creative talents, that's how it goes. If, the only way they release it is because of bribery, which is unfortunate, but it's how it is.
Because there's a statement that says the royalties for her Mary Poppins series had begun to dwindle by the 1960s, and Disney reportedly offered to pay her $100,000, and that is going to be more than $800,000 by today's standards. So that's what it wanted to be, and so there was a lot of negotiation that happened beforehand because she just did not want anyone's hands to be on her Mary Poppins story, and a lot of it has to deal with the story behind it. The reason why she didn't really want to have anyone's hands get on the novel is it was a lot of painful past that was actually put into the story of Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is actually a character based on her aunt, and when Travers was little, her father dealt with alcoholism and died when she was very, very young. And so her aunt had to come in and help take care of her sisters and help her mom out.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of stuff I did not know. That's very sad.
And there is so much heartfelt stuff in there that she was almost OCD with her story. She wanted stuff to be very, very specific, and that's why it got very touchy when they wanted to make the film. And then when they finally gave into it, there was a joke with the studio that when they were making it, that everyone just kept hearing the phrase, no, 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 no. Anything that they would propose, anyone. So the Sherman Brothers, who wrote all of the wonderful music, everything she had a problem with. Even like down to the grammar, like let's go fly a kite. She did not like the grammar of it. She wanted to let's go and fly a kite. Something simple like that she didn't like, and it was just this battle constantly between just trying to make the film.
Now, let us begin.
She has a lot of ideas.
What kind of ideas?
Constable's responsible. Now, how does that sound?
No. Responsible is not a word.
We made it up.
Well, unmake it up.
She won't approve Dick Van Dyke.
No.
The Banks' house doesn't look like that. No, it's all wrong.
It's all wrong?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Stop! Mary Poppins is not for sale. I won't have her turned into one of your silly cartoons.
Says the woman who sent a flying nanny with a talking umbrella to save the children.
One phrase I remember from the trailer of Mr. Banks is that, you know, I remember her saying to Disney in the film that this story to me is what Mickey is to you, Mr. Disney. You know, it was her baby. So in a way, I can kind of understand her, you know, being difficult because, like you said, this was so personal for her that I can kind of understand her, you know, being overly protective about it.
And so I actually have a list of things that were her dislikes for the film, and there's a long list, and that's why they were saying it was such a battle just to make this. So she did not like the animated sequences at all. So that's going to be the chalk scene where they jump into the picture. She didn't want any of the animation tying in with the live action. I do too. Something about the Banks' family home she did not approve of. So I don't know if it was the way they built it or the way it looked. She just did not approve of it. She didn't like the shift that happened with the time period. She wanted to keep the original time period that the book was written in, which was a lot earlier, but the Disney studio changed it. I'm guessing the present time.
Okay.
Because in Saving Mr. Banks, when they show a lot of flashbacks to these little girls growing up with this nanny aunt, it's very far back in the timeline compared to when Mary Poppins came out.
Right. Right, which would make sense given Travers' age.
She did not like Mary Poppins' attractive appearance. I
Thought she was too pretty.
She probably wanted someone to be more plain, not dressed really fancy. And that's how they portrayed Mary Poppins as. So she didn't like that. She did not like that they cast Dick Van Dyke to be Bert. She had a big, huge issue with that. And I believe in Saving Mr. Banks, they did touch upon that. Where she didn't like that they wanted him to be Bert.
Oh, wow. I love Dick Van Dyke. I love almost pretty much every movie he's in.
And the other day was his 93rd birthday. Woo! Yep. She did not like the songs that the Sherman Brothers were writing for it. So that's going to be Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Spoonful of Sugar, Let's Go Fly a Kite. All of that made the Sherman Brothers have such a huge name. She didn't like any. Oh my gosh. She didn't like any of it. So there's all these scenes in Saving Mr. Banks where they keep going back and they just kept rewriting stuff.
Spoonful of sugar.
The score of Mary Poppins was maybe the best thing we ever did because everything was just perfect. And we had written a lot of stuff. And these are the ones that were selected by Walt Disney himself.
There's a lot of great musicals, but there are a handful of them where the words go in the dictionary because of it.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Stop! What on earth are you talking about? Supercali, or whatever the infernal thing is.
These types of songs are instant classic songs, and I think that is a big reason why the movie is so powerful and memorable. I mean, everybody knows these songs.
Let's go fly a kite.
I do remember seeing it as a little kid because Let's Go Fly a Kite. I think it might have made me cry.
It's a remarkable song, actually, because you never, ever got tired of it. It's probably the most uplifting song anybody's ever written. And every time I hear it, I cry. Every time.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And she'd be like, no, I don't want this.
Right. I actually used to be able to play Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious on the piano when I was younger.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. I was like, I insist, like, if I was being forced to take piano lessons, I bought myself a book of Disney songs to learn on the piano. That was one of my, I guess, compromises in a way.
And so when they were making all these decisions, P.L. Travers actually demanded that all of their conversations be recorded. At the end of Saving Mr. Banks in the credits, they actually have one of the original recordings of her talking either to Walt Disney or the Sherman Brothers.
Yeah.
So,
At number 17, Cherry Tree Lane, the Banks household is in uproar.
Hold it. Now, I see the Cherry Tree Lane as not too townified on one side of the park. And we'll get you a photograph of 50 Smith Street in order to see that the house is really quite like that, but it has more of a garden than my house.
every little thing. They had a recorder out in front of them, and they recorded everything.
Oh, wow.
Which, in a way, it wasn't that bad, because look at all the history you got from that. All of the conversations that get lost over time. I mean, it's all archived.
That's how they were able to make Saving Mr. Banks, is because they had all those recordings. And in a way, it was to protect herself, too. You know, a lot of people demand things to be written down on paper. That's kind of like a verbal contract, almost, in a way, for herself.
And there has been information going back and forth on this. There always is the notion that when a movie gets created, like Saving Mr. Banks, everything might not be accurate. That's what goes on, that they say stories that are based on a true story might not be true. Right. And one of the pieces of information is that P.L. Travers did not want the color red to be anywhere in the film. Wearing red.
Sorry, Miss Travers.
There are two stories that go back and forth. One of them is the sad part from her childhood, that she did not want red in the film because it reminded her of her father coughing up and throwing up blood.
Oh goodness, I could
from that.
In a way, that could have been a form of PTSD. That it would be a trigger for a panic for her. Right. And I could completely understand that. But at the time, there probably wasn't that much known about mental health issues, and they just, women's, flabbergasting, in that time period.
So we're not really sure if that's true or not. The other one is that she just wanted to be difficult with the studio. Wanted to make one other demand that would really tick them off, and just to make them really
have
go on a run around and work hard just to make it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about the movie magic that happened within Mary Poppins.
And we're going to have a credit to some of the info we got in the comment, in the description.
So there is a wonderful video that I watched on this, and that's where we're grabbing some clips from and where we got this information from. So when it came to building the sets, they did not want them to be all realistic, perfect. They made the sets for Mary Poppins look like it came straight off of a Broadway show. So when you're seeing on the rooftops, when you're seeing the sides, they did not want to make it look like that they were filming through an actual city. They were making it look like they were on a soundstage, that they were on a Broadway show.
Oh. I didn't know that was done on purpose.
I actually didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Usually before a certain time period, a lot of movies, when they made their productions, they didn't go all out like they do now with their movie sets. So I was just always assumed that that's what it was.
They didn't have as many safety measures as well as we do today. The harnesses, the invisible line, for to make people look like they're flying.
We'll be getting that in a second, actually.
Oh, okay.
Animatronics, which are very famous in the Disney parks, were actually used in the movie. So when you have the umbrella, the head that talks, that's an animatronic. And then when you have Mary Poppins having the bird on her finger, I believe it's a robin. Yeah. That's also an animatronic.
That one was a little bit of the obvious one for me. At least I remember. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie, is a spoonful of sugar.
We're going to talk about stop motion film next. There is a scene where Jane is in the nursery and you see all the toys getting packed up in there.
Oh, yeah.
That is stop motion. Stop motion is very, very popular in Nightmare Before Christmas and a lot of other movies where they take picture by picture and they're slowly just taking it, and they just then put it high-speed roll it, so then it just, all those pictures that were going like the toy soldiers, step by step, it's just going to be a very fluid movement then.
There's actually a recent movie, not Disney, that came out that used stop motion animation.
What was it?
It's called Kubo and the Two Strings. Oh. I don't remember if that actually came out in theaters, but it's been very popular on Netflix. I've been meaning to watch it.
Claymation movies like Wallace and Gromit, that is another, those are also stop action ones.
Right. Remember, the show Gumby?
Stop motion. Yeah.
Remember the show Gumby? That was stop motion. I loved that growing up.
There is another part in the nursery where they are cleaning up and a table falls backwards. How they did that was they just filmed it and then they ran the film backwards. So there's not much to it, they just ran the film backwards then from there.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
All of the scenes that we have them floating or flying, that they're on wires. But when they're in the scene where they are floating towards the top of the ceiling,
Yeah.
they actually have some type of machine or something under them that's constantly making them bob up and down. So they're not just hanging there. There's this like little thing that makes them move up and down to make them bob.
So instead of being hung,
just
they're being lifted.
Stationary. Yeah, it just instead of just being there stationary, not
Yeah.
moving on the wire, there's something underneath them that goes that's moving up and down, to make them float.
I could see that. That would probably make me a little motion sick.
Another thing that you have noticed in the film is that there is animation brought in with the live action. There are several things that they did to achieve that. The very first thing is that they used a sodium vapor process screen. It's orange, and what they do is they film the actors on a very basic set, and they have that sodium vapor process screen behind. When you film, it picks up everything but that background, so the orange won't show up. And then from there, then they can just go and stick in any background that they want during the editing process.
Okay, so it reminds me of like today's green screen, but I like
Very relatable,
right?
And then when it came into putting animation in, they took reference pictures for the animators, so the animators can see, okay, where do we need to draw this, where to position it, and then that's when they added color to it and they put it all together, also using xerography, which we talked about in how 101 Dalmatians changed the Walt Disney Studio.
That was one of the earlier days of Disney.
And so they used xerography, where they're just making copies of stuff, and that's on cells, so they were able to put that in on top of and move it around with the regular film footage.
Okay. A fun little fact with one of our all-time favorite actresses, Julie Andrews, is that Disney approached her while she was performing in a play called Camelot, and was like, I want you to be in this movie, and she said, oh, I'm pregnant. Are you sure? He's like, we'll wait for you. And that ended up being a very good notion because, well, not only was that, ahead of its time to wait for somebody who's pregnant, Julie Andrews lent her voice to Mary Poppins, and her voice is so beautiful, that she gave, in my opinion, she gave a motherly sense almost to Mary Poppins, and that to me was just, I just love Julie Andrews. I can go on and on forever about her, but I'm not going to in this one. This concludes day 19 of 25 Days of Disney. Keep watching Stub Clubbers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the little bell, and then also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Alright, bye guys.
See ya.
Remember, don't text and drive. It can wait.